Settle in. Get comfortable. This one's about the distance between loving someone well and loving someone honestly. And a 3-pound dog who didn't know the difference, which turned out to be the whole point. Chapter 1. The Boot. The Alpha King of Thornwall Pack had not moved in 45 minutes. His left leg had gone numb around minute 12. He was aware of this in the way a man is aware of rain while watching a sunrise. Technically relevant, functionally irrelevant. The council meeting he was supposed to be chairing had started without him. Harry had radioed twice. George had said he was reviewing ground-level security assessments. The ground-level security assessment was a puppy. It was asleep on his boot. 3 pounds, breed unknown. Coat the color of warm bread. It had walked directly across the great hall floor, past 6 chairs, past the fire, past everything in the room that was warmer and softer than a boot. And it had sat on his boot and closed its eyes and gone to sleep. And George Sellinstead, Alpha King of 600 wolves, sovereign of 5 territories, the man whose word moved borders, had not moved since. His eyes were gold. Full wolf gold. He was not aware of this. "Commander," Granite said, "the commander is sleeping." George didn't respond to that. He hadn't responded to it the first time either, 4 hours after the puppy arrived, when Granite had produced the name fully formed out of nothing, the way a mountain produces an avalanche, without consultation and without apology. Commander Biscuit. Commander, because the puppy had walked to the center of the room and claimed the space with the energy of a creature born to lead. Biscuit, because the puppy smelled like the biscuits Malaya baked on Sunday mornings, and Granite had strong feelings about those biscuits, and the feelings had transferred. George had said, out loud, in his own hall, "We are not naming a dog with a military rank." Granite had said, "The commander's rank is earned." The commander selected the highest-ranking surface in the room. That is leadership instinct. The highest-ranking surface in the room was George's boot. He stood there, gold eyes, numb leg. A man who would rather lose circulation than disturb something that weighed less than bread. 4 hours earlier, Malaya had walked in carrying her jacket like a sling. George was at his desk. Reports. The Eastern Border Patrol had flagged irregular scent trails, and the grain supply from the lowland packs needed renegotiation, and he was doing what he always did, which was the work. Done well, done steadily, done with the composure of a man who had been governing since he was 21 and had never once let the governing slip. What is that? A puppy. Where did it come from? The border ditch. He was alone. No mother, no litter. Just him. She set the jacket on the floor and unfolded it, and the puppy tumbled out. It was the size of a large potato. It stood on legs that were not yet committed to the concept of standing. You brought a dog into a wolf pack. I brought a puppy into a home. He needs feeding and warmth and a name. We're not naming it. I'm calling him Biscuit. The puppy walked to George, not to Malaya, who smelled like flour and honey and the green bite of her garden herbs, who had carried him in her jacket for 3 miles, who was warm and close and had already named him. The puppy walked past all of that and went to George, who smelled like wood smoke and cold stone and something mineral that ran underneath everything, and sat on his boot. The silence that followed was not a silence. It was Granite reorganizing his entire existence. Mine. No. Mine. It's a dog. Commander Biscuit is not a dog. Commander Biscuit is a strategic asset. The commander has identified superior infrastructure and established a forward operating position. This is military-grade instinct. This is leadership. We're keeping him, Malaya said. We're not... George, the puppy is on your boot and you haven't moved. She was right. He looked down. 3 pounds of warm, bread-colored fur. Eyes closed. The faintest rise and fall of breathing against the leather of his boot. Something in his chest, the deep part, the part that was stone and territory, and 600 wolves and the weight of all of them, did a thing it had never done before. It softened. He didn't name the softening. He filed it under operational tolerance and looked at Malaya and said, "I didn't want to startle it." And his eyes were gold, and she knew, and he didn't know she knew, and that gap, the knowing and the not knowing, was where the next 3 weeks would live. "Your eyes are gold, George." Lighting condition. "It's noon." She left the room. She went to the hallway. She stood in the hallway, and she watched him stand perfectly still for 45 minutes because a puppy was asleep on his boot. She watched his face. The composure was there. It was always there. But underneath, something she'd never seen in 4 years of marriage. Not the alpha expression, not the governance face. Something underneath both. Something that looked like a man who was feeling something he couldn't contain. And the inability to contain it was making his body motionless, and his eyes gold, and his entire being oriented toward 3 pounds of sleeping fur. He looked like a man who loved something helplessly, without governance, without management, without the composure filter that everything else in his life passed through before arriving at the surface. The puppy got the unfiltered version. She'd never gotten the unfiltered version. She didn't call the feeling jealousy, not yet, but the seed was planted. Right there, in the hallway, watching her husband be undone by a puppy while being composed for her. The seed. Harry arrived at minute 12. He leaned against the doorframe and assessed the situation with the practiced calm of a beta who had seen everything and profited from most of it. The Alpha King, standing in his own hall, left leg at a 45-degree angle of commitment, eyes gold. A puppy the size of a bread roll asleep on his boot. The expression on George's face was not the expression of a man tolerating a minor inconvenience. It was the expression of a man who had discovered a new religion and was converting and didn't want to be disturbed. Harry pulled out his ledger. He carried the ledger for 6 years. It had documented border dispute wagers, mating ceremony pools, the Great Hall rat incident where he'd made 400 credits betting on which council member would scream first. The ledger was a financial institution. It had never documented anything as profitable as this. First entry, day 1. Alpha King, immobilized, boot, puppy, eyes gold, duration unknown, opening odds. He established the categories over dinner. Category A, date of admission. When would the alpha say, "I love the puppy," or equivalent? Bets ranged from week 2 to never. Elder Constance bet 18 months because, she said, Sellinstead men were emotionally constipated and she'd known George's father. Category B, method of admission, how it would happen. Verbal voluntary, lowest odds. Verbal involuntary, mid odds. Catastrophic public incident, highest odds, best payout. Category C, the name. Would the alpha say Commander Biscuit out loud before witnesses? Separate bet, higher stakes. Category D, tears. Would the alpha cry about the puppy? Odds astronomical. No one bet sooner than 4 months. By bedtime, 40 wolves had placed bets. By the end of the week, 600 participants. And Harry was running the most profitable operation in Thornwall history. My alpha is falling in love with a 3-pound dog, Harry told Torres that first night, entering figures by candlelight. And I am turning his emotional journey into a pack-wide financial event. This is the best job I've ever had. Chapter 2, The Blanket. Malaya woke up cold. Her feet were cold. The premium blanket, the one she'd bargained 3 weeks for at the market in Dunham, the one that was supposed to be on her feet, was gone. She found it in the puppy's basket, folded, arranged for maximum warmth distribution. George? He was lying beside her in the dark, with his eyes closed and the absolute stillness of a man who was definitely awake and absolutely committed to the performance of sleep. The blanket. What blanket? Our blanket, the one on my feet, It's in the puppy basket. The puppy must have dragged it. The puppy weighs 3 pounds. The blanket weighs 4. Unusual air currents. A draft. Folded. A blanket. Her eyes caught the firelight wrong. For half a second, the warm brown went amber, the wolf surfacing with the irritation, and George clocked it the way he clocked everything about her, automatically, without deciding to. The flash was gone before she blinked. He filed it and said nothing. He didn't have a response for that. She sat up and looked at the basket. The puppy was warm. The blanket was perfectly arranged, tucked at the edges. Her husband had gotten up in the night, taken the blanket off her feet, carried it to the basket, and folded it for a puppy. Thermal security, Granite said, from somewhere deep in the bedrock of George's consciousness. The commander's operating temperature was suboptimal. Remedial action was required. George told Granite to be quiet. Granite was not quiet. The commander's breathing rate overnight was 17.4 per minute, marginally below optimal. I have concerns. You counted. I monitored. Monitoring is not counting. Counting implies emotional investment. I am not emotionally invested in a dog. You named it Commander Biscuit. That is a designation, not a name. Malaya lay back down. She didn't say this. The thought arrived, and she put it away because the thought was unfair, and she knew it was unfair. He loved her. He showed it in his ways. He didn't show it in blanket ways. He showed it in governance ways. In I will protect you and provide for you and make correct decisions ways. But the blanket. For the puppy. After one day. Folded with a care she'd never seen him apply to anything in their bedroom. He folded the blanket the way you fold something precious, something that matters not because it's valuable, but because the thing sleeping under it is valuable. And the folding is love, and the love arrived without the filter, and the without the filter was the thing she couldn't stop thinking about. The seed grew. Day 4, council meeting. Sarah walked past the puppy's basket on her way to the water table. George growled. The growl was involuntary. It came from the chest, from the place where Granite lived, from the deep operational center that George controlled every waking hour except, apparently, when someone walked within 3 feet of a puppy basket. Sarah stopped. Alpha? Did I do something? Throat condition. Harry, back row, adjusted Category B odds in his ledger, leaned to guard Torres. He's accelerating. The puppy woke up, yawned. The yawn had a squeak. It was the smallest sound in the room, and it landed in Granite's consciousness like a cathedral bell. The commander is awake. The commander has reported for duty. All systems nominal. George's eyes went gold. Every wolf in the room felt the pulse through the pack bond, the warm, involuntary broadcast of an alpha whose wolf was experiencing something that bore no resemblance to territorial authority, and every resemblance to a man watching a puppy yawn. Malaya was at the meeting. She felt it too. Not just through the pack bond, but through the mate bond, the specific private frequency between bonded pairs. Through that frequency, she felt what Granite was feeling. Not protectiveness. Tenderness. Raw. Unfiltered. The emotional equivalent of holding something fragile and being terrified of breaking it. She had never felt that through the mate bond. In 4 years of bonding, Granite had broadcast strength, authority, dominance, protection, desire, satisfaction. Never tenderness. The tenderness was new. The tenderness was apparently activated by a puppy. Through the bond, Hazel stirred. Well, Hazel said, dry and unsurprised, there it is. What? He has feelings. Your husband's wolf has feelings. Real ones. Unpackaged. I knew he had feelings. You knew he had managed feelings. Vetted feelings. The feelings that pass through the composure filter before they arrive at the surface. These are not those feelings. These are the ones underneath. The ones the filter was built to hide. And they're about a puppy. Malaya sat in the council meeting feeling her husband's wolf experience tenderness for the first time, and the tenderness was directed at a basket containing a 3-pound dog, and the feeling that arrived was, so he can feel this. He can feel this, and he's been choosing not to feel it with me. The feeling was unfair, and she knew it, and it didn't stop being the feeling. Day 6, 3 in the morning. Granite woke George. Check the commander. He's breathing. I can see his stomach moving. Verify breathing rate. 15 to 20 per minute is standard. Count. I'm not counting breaths at 3 in the morning. 18 per minute. I have already counted. I require confirmation. Count. He counted. 18. Normal. He adjusted the blanket, the premium blanket, the one that was supposed to be on Malaya's feet and had been permanently reassigned to the commander's basket through a process George had stopped questioning because questioning required admitting, and admitting was the thing he couldn't do. He went back to bed. Granite required a second verification 45 minutes later. The guards had adapted. Torres, morning briefing. Perimeter secure. Commander Biscuit in East Garden. Thermal status, optimal. The Alpha's eyes went gold twice during the commander's morning walk, once when the commander investigated a beetle, and once when the commander sneezed. Jensen, are we seriously filing puppy reports for a regular dog in a pack of 600 wolves? Torres, safest dog in 5 territories. Every wolf in this pack would die for that puppy, and the puppy doesn't even know what a wolf is. Jensen considered this. Fair. Torres, Protocol CB1. The commander's movements are to be tracked, his temperature monitored, and his perimeter maintained at 3 feet minimum clearance from unvetted personnel. Who wrote Protocol CB1? Who do you think? The Alpha wrote a security protocol for a puppy? The Alpha wrote a security protocol for a strategic asset of non-negotiable importance, his words. He delivered the protocol at 4 in the morning. He was holding the puppy. His eyes were gold. I did not ask follow-up questions. In the kitchen, Chef Maria had received new standing orders. Premium chicken, white rice, cut small. For the Alpha's personal consumption. Except the Alpha's personal consumption was being redirected to a bowl on the floor next to the Alpha's desk. And the Alpha didn't seem to notice that he was ordering premium meals and not eating them. And Maria noticed and said nothing. Because saying something felt like seeing something private. Malaya was awake for the second check. She lay still, eyes half closed, watching. George stood over the puppy basket in the dark. Gold eyes, the careful posture. Not the Alpha stance, the one that commanded rooms and moved borders. A different posture, softer. The posture of a man standing guard over something small, and the standing guard was not duty, it was devotion. It was visible in the angle of his shoulders and the tilt of his head, and the way his hands hung at his sides, loose, not fisted. The hands of a man who was ready to pick something up gently if it needed picking up. She'd never seen him stand like that outside their bedroom door when she was sick. Never seen the gentle hands posture when she was hurting. He was competent when she was sick. Brought medicine, made tea, did what needed doing. But the standing. The 3 in the morning devotional standing over a sleeping thing because leaving it unwatched felt impossible. That was new. That was the puppies. Through the bond, Hazel was watching too, feeling Granite's broadcast. The tenderness was no longer occasional, it was constant. A low, steady frequency that Granite didn't seem to know he was sending. He's been hiding this, Hazel said. 4 years of bond, and the tenderness was behind a wall I didn't even know existed. A puppy broke the wall. Not us, not our bond. A puppy. Hazel was quiet for a moment. And I find this both hilarious and unacceptable. Malaya closed her eyes. George came back to bed. She didn't mention it in the morning. Chapter 3. The Unvetted. Day 10, evening, their bedroom. The puppy asleep in its basket, which had been permanently relocated to their room because Granite required proximity for nighttime monitoring operations, and George had stopped pretending the relocation was anything other than what it was. George was reading a governance report. Malaya was sitting on the bed. She'd been sitting on the bed for 12 minutes, Working toward a sentence, the way you work toward a cliff edge when you know the view will change everything, but you're not sure you want the view to change. Can I ask you something? Of course. When was the last time you did something for me without thinking about it first? He looked up. She watched the composure engage, the way it always engaged, the automatic smoothing of the surface before the response arrived. What do you mean? Without planning, without considering, without running it through the "is this the right decision" filter. When was the last time you just did something for me because the feeling arrived and you acted on the feeling before you could manage it? He thought. She watched him think. The thinking was the answer. He was searching. If the answer existed readily, he wouldn't need to search. The search meant he couldn't find an example. Not because he didn't love her, because every act of love he'd ever given her had been vetted, approved, managed by the internal governance system before delivery. I'm thoughtful about how I show. You're managed about how you show. You're thoughtful with the pack. You're managed with me. There's a difference. What difference? Thoughtful is choosing to do something kind. Managed is vetting the kindness before it arrives. You vet everything, including love. You run love through the alpha filter, and what comes out is correct and measured and perfectly adequate, and I have never once seen you love me the way you love that puppy. The word hung. The puppy. She'd said it. What? You stole my blanket at 3 a.m. for the puppy. You didn't think about it. You didn't plan it. You didn't run it through governance. Your wolf said the puppy is cold, and your body got up and took a blanket and folded it, and you didn't even remember doing it. That's unvetted love. That's love without the filter. I've been married to you for 4 years, and I have never received unvetted love. That's not. You check the puppy's breathing at 3 a.m. You count its breaths, 18 per minute. You stood over its basket twice last night. I was awake. George, I saw you. I saw the way you stood, your hands. You were ready to pick it up gently if it needed picking up. You've never stood over me like that. You've never been the man who stands in the dark, watching something breathe because leaving it unwatched feels impossible. You were awake. I was awake. And I watched you be the most tender version of yourself I've ever seen. And you were being it for a dog, and not for me. And I'm not angry, but I am asking you, where has that man been for 4 years? A low sound came from her chest. Not a growl, something quieter. The sound a wolf makes when it's been patient, past patience. George heard it. He'd heard it maybe 3 times in their entire marriage, always when Malaya was too far past composure for the human layer to hold, and the wolf underneath leaked through. The sound was Hazel. The sound meant, I am done waiting. He put down the report. The composure was there, but underneath, something was happening. Not breaking, cracking, the way stone cracks when water gets in. Slowly, from the inside, through the place where the softness lives. I don't know how to be that with you. Be what? He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. The puppy doesn't need the alpha. It just needs. He stopped. The boot. It needs the boot. Warm, present. Don't move. That's all. I can do that. I know how to do that. And with me. He was quiet for a long time. With you, it's. You need more than a boot. You need a husband. A partner. You need me to be right. And warm. And I don't know how to be both at the same time. So I pick right, because right is safe. Yeah. And warm is the thing where I break something. Break what? He gestured at himself. The composure. The whole architecture of managed George Sellenstead. If I do with you what I do with the puppy, if I just let it come out, whatever comes out, it might be wrong, or too much, or not. The puppy doesn't care. The puppy doesn't have opinions about whether the thing that comes out is adequate. Adequate. Your favorite word. He was quiet again. When he spoke, his voice was lower, rougher. closer to the thing underneath. It's a safe word, sufficient. Without committing to... He stopped, started again. I feel things, strongly, and specifying how strongly is... I can't. You can do it with a puppy. The puppy doesn't know what adequate means. I know what adequate means. I know you know, and you don't push, which is kind, and the kindness lets me hide, and the hiding... He was losing the sentence, finding it, losing it. 4 years. I've been comfortable instead of honest for 4 years, and I didn't know those were different things until a dog sat on my boot and I couldn't stop. She was quiet. The room, the sleeping puppy. The husband who had just said more real things in 2 minutes than he'd said in 4 years of marriage because a puppy cracked the container and the crack was letting things out. Granite was quiet too. Hazel was quiet. The wolves were listening. Not to the words, to the bond. To the thing moving through the frequency between them that had never been there before. George, unfiltered, arriving. George. Yeah? I don't need the alpha. Not in this room. Not at 3 a.m. Not when it's just us. In this room, in the dark, I need the boot. The boot. The warm, present, available version. The one that doesn't move. The one that lets things sleep on it. The one that steals blankets and counts breaths and stands in the dark with gentle hands. I need that version, not the governed version. The gentle one. What if the gentle one is too much? What if the gentle one is exactly enough? He reached across the bed, took her hand, not the way he usually took her hand, the alpha way, the firm, decisive, I have you grip. He took it loosely, gently, the way he'd hold the puppy if the puppy needed holding. The loose grip that says, I'm here, but I'm not containing you. You can leave if you need to. I'll be here if you stay. Is this the boot? She asked. This is the boot. The boot is good. Adequate? Don't you dare. He almost smiled. Not the alpha smile. Not the governance smile. The one underneath. The one that cost him. She could see the cost, the composure fighting the honesty, the alpha filter trying to vet the words before they arrived, and the words arriving anyway, unvetted, unmanaged, warm. Better than adequate, he said, and it cost him, and she saw it cost him. And the seeing was the beginning of the bridge between the puppy version and the her version. And the bridge was built from 3 words that the alpha would never approve, because the alpha didn't deal in better. The alpha dealt in adequate. And adequate was safe, and better was not. The puppy snored. They held hands in the dark. For the first time, the holding wasn't governed. Chapter 4. The Commander. The next weeks were 2 courtships. Courtship 1, Granite and Commander Biscuit. The covert operations continued. Thermal monitoring, perimeter defense, nutritional oversight, which involved directing George to select premium protein from the kitchen for personal consumption and then redirecting it to the puppy's bowl. Night watches at 3 a.m, now including a secondary objective that Granite categorized as ancillary reconnaissance, which was checking on Malaya after verifying the commander status. Ancillary, Hazel said through the bond. You check on her because you love her, and you're learning to admit it, and the puppy taught you how. The puppy taught me nothing. The puppy is a strategic asset. My monitoring of the Luna is a separate operational stream. You just called her the Luna, not the other human in the bed, not the governance partner. The Luna, that's new. That is a designation, not tenderness. Everything with you is a designation and not tenderness. Even the tenderness is a designation and not tenderness. I don't experience tenderness. You woke up at 3 a.m. and verified her breathing rate after you verified the puppy's. You counted her breaths. You counted them separately. That's 2 counts. One for the puppy you love and one for the woman you love. And the fact that you're doing both means the wall is down and everything behind it is coming through. and you cannot put it back. And I have been waiting 4 years for this, and I am not going to let you call it ancillary reconnaissance." Granite was quiet, the kind of quiet that meant Hazel was right. Courtship 2, George and Malaya. Not the courtship from years ago, the marriage courtship, the harder one, the one where you've already won the person and now you have to deserve them in a new way. He brought her tea, not because she asked, because he wanted to. He set it beside her without commentary, without the governance wrapper of, "I noticed you were working late and hydration is important." He just brought tea, and the tea said, "I was thinking about you. That's all." She looked at the tea, looked at him. He was already turning to leave, and the turning was the point. The not lingering, the not explaining, the just doing and going, which was the opposite of governance and the beginning of something else. "Thank you." "You're welcome." No further explanation, just tea, the unvetted tea. She could have cried about the tea, but she didn't, because crying about tea felt excessive, and also completely proportionate because the tea was the first unmanaged gesture he'd ever given her, and unmanaged gestures from managed men are worth every tear you don't shed about them. He started checking on her at night. Not with words. He'd wake at 3 a.m, Granite pulling him up for the puppy check anyway, and after verifying Commander Biscuit's breathing rate and blanket status, he'd come back to bed, and instead of immediately sleeping, he'd look at Malaya. In the dark. The way he looked at the puppy. The standing guard look. The "I'm watching something breathe because leaving it unwatched feels impossible" look. She was awake the first time he did this. Felt him looking. Kept her eyes closed. Let him look. Let the looking be his practice ground for the unmanaged version. She could smell him in the dark, wood smoke and stone, and the particular warmth that meant his wolf was close to the surface. And the warmth was gentler than she'd ever felt it. And the gentleness was the puppy's legacy, spreading. He started saying things, small things, unprompted. "Your hair is different today." "I washed it." "I know. It's different. I noticed." Just that. I noticed. Not "it looks good," not "I like it," just "I noticed." The smallest possible honest observation. The baby step. The boot version of a compliment. She took it, held it, didn't push for more. Because pushing a man who's learning to be unmanaged is like pushing a plant to grow. Counterproductive. You water it and wait. The tea was water. The noticing was growth. He did things for her he'd never done before. Left a book he thought she'd like on her side of the bed, said nothing about it. She found it, read the first page, looked at him across the room. He was reading a patrol report and not looking at her, and the not looking was deliberate, and the deliberateness was the gesture. He'd chosen this book, placed it there, and removed himself from the receiving of gratitude, because gratitude required managing, and managing was the thing he was learning to stop doing. The wolf physicality leaked more now, not just with the puppy, with her. She'd catch the gold flash in his eyes when she entered a room, the micro-stillness when she walked past him in the hall, the half-second where his body oriented toward her scent, before his mind took over and pretended it hadn't happened. A low sound in his chest one evening when she leaned over his shoulder to read something and her hair brushed his neck. A sound he swallowed immediately, but she heard it, and the hearing was a gift he didn't know he'd given. One evening, their room, lights off, the puppy snoring in its basket. "Malaya?" "Yeah?" "I like when you read next to me." She'd been reading next to him for 4 years. He'd never said he liked it, not once. "You like it." "The pages. The sound of you turning pages. It's..." He was searching for the word. The alpha filter was trying to engage, trying to find the managed word, the word that wouldn't expose too much. He overrode the filter. "It's my favorite sound in this house." Better than the puppy squeak? Different. The squeak is Granite's thing. The pages are mine. The sound you make when you find something interesting and you breathe differently, and the breathing changes the page-turning rhythm, and I can tell what you're reading based on how fast you turn pages. Fast pages, boring section. Slow pages, good part. No pages for a long time, the really good part. You stopped turning pages for 11 minutes last Tuesday, and I almost asked what you were reading, and I didn't because asking felt like interrupting, and interrupting the good part felt unkind. She put her book down. 11 minutes. 11 minutes, I counted. You count my pages. I count your pages the way I count the puppy's breaths. I don't decide to count, I just count. You and the puppy. The two things I count without deciding. George. Yeah? That's the most romantic thing you've ever said to me, and it involved comparing me to a dog. I'm not comparing you to... You count my pages and the puppy's breaths. Same verb, same involuntary impulse. I'm in the puppy category. You're not in the puppy category. I'm in the category of things you love without managing the love. That is the puppy category. And it's the best category. I want to be in the puppy category forever. The puppy category is not a romantic designation. The puppy category is the most romantic designation because it's the unvetted one. The puppy gets unvetted love. I want unvetted love. The puppy category is unvetted love. He was quiet. She was right. The puppy category. The category of things he loved without the alpha filter. The category he didn't know he had until a 3-pound dog sat on his boot. And the category opened. And now his wife was asking to be in it. And the asking was so simple and so terrifying because putting her in the puppy category meant loving her without management. You're in it. Just like that? Just like that. The puppy didn't audition. The puppy sat on my boot. You're sitting next to me. Same qualification. She kissed him. Not the governance kiss, something else. Something that was in the puppy category. Warm, unvetted. The kiss of a woman who had just been let into a room she didn't know existed. And the room was where her husband kept the real version. When she pulled back, her eyes were amber. Full amber, not the half flash he'd caught during the blanket argument. Both irises. Hazel, right at the surface, looking at him through his wife's face. He'd seen it before, in passing, in flickers, never held. Never aimed directly at him with this much heat behind it. The amber stayed for 3 full seconds, and he counted every one. Through the bond, Granite was broadcasting at full volume. The commander's perimeter is secure. The commander's temperature is optimal. The Luna is also secure. The Luna's temperature is also, I assume, relevant. Progress, Hazel said. Grudging, military-coded, operational language masked progress. But progress. Harry briefed Malaya every week on the pool. He was unaware that the puppy situation was also transforming the marriage. Week 2, Harry's office. Category A, trending toward Week 3. Category B, catastrophic public incident, now favorite at even money. Market penetration is total. And Category D, tears, still long odds. Your bet is 6 months. Adjust it. Adjust which way? Shorter. You think the alpha is going to cry about the puppy sooner? I think my husband is closer to the surface than anyone knows. 3 months. Harry studied her. Malaya was not a frivolous bettor. 3 months, noted. Care to share your information advantage? The blanket was off my feet, Harry. He took the blanket off my feet for the puppy. A man whose emotional containment system is that compromised is not going to last 6 months. What else? She smiled, the private smile of a woman who knew something the betting pool didn't account for. The puppy wasn't just changing the alpha's composure, it was changing the marriage underneath. Luna's privilege. I don't share information with the house. The house appreciates your discretion and takes 10%. In the kitchen, at midnight, Chef Maria found the Alpha King sitting on the floor. He was feeding the puppy from his hand. Premium chicken, white rice. The puppy was eating with the concentrated enthusiasm of a creature who believed every meal might be the last meal ever produced in the history of the world. George didn't know Maria was there. He was talking to the puppy while he fed it. "You're a good dog." He said it in a voice Maria had never heard from an alpha. The voice was not alpha. The voice was just a man on a floor with a dog. "I'm learning, Commander. Your techniques are being applied to other contexts." The puppy licked his hand. George made the sound, the chest sound, the one that came from the place where Granite lived. The low, involuntary rumble that meant the wolf was feeling something it would never admit to feeling. Maria left. She took the back stairs, and she walked quietly, and she didn't mention it to anyone except Eric the next morning. And even then she only said, "The alpha is learning emotional skills from a dog. This is either the saddest or the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my kitchen, and I've worked here for 20 years. From a puppy," Eric said. From a puppy. And honestly, the puppy is a better teacher than anyone else has ever been. Because the puppy doesn't grade him. The puppy just eats the chicken and licks his hand, and the not grading is the whole lesson. Day 15. Monthly pack gathering. 600 wolves. George on the platform addressing agricultural quotas. The puppy escaped its backstage basket, waddled through the gap between two guards who were pretending they hadn't seen it because Protocol CB1 stated that the commander's movements were self-determined and not to be impeded. 3 pounds of warm fur crossing the platform, in front of 600 wolves, walking directly to George, sitting on his boot, the most powerful alpha in 5 territories. Mid-sentence about grain redistribution, with a puppy on his boot, in front of the entire pack. Granite surged. The eyes went gold. The bond broadcast at maximum volume, and 600 wolves felt it, the alpha's wolf claiming the puppy. Not as a pet, not as a dog, as something named and ranked and loved beyond governance. Harry, back of the hall, whispered to Torres, "This is it. Category B. Catastrophic public incident." Torres, "He hasn't said anything yet." "Wait." George looked down. The puppy looked up. The puppy yawned. The squeak. He looked at Malaya, front row. She was not giving him the supportive smile. She was giving him the "I have been waiting for this" smile. The smile that said, "Show them. Show them the boot version. Show them the man I've been meeting in the dark for 2 weeks." He looked at Harry. Harry was holding the ledger with the expression of a man whose entire financial ecosystem depended on what happened next. George picked up the puppy. 3 pounds, 1 hand, warm. "This is Biscuit. He lives here now." 600 wolves. The bond hummed. Not with authority, with warmth. Personal warmth. The warmth of an alpha who holds small things gently. The softness underneath the governance. The pack settled into the warmth. The settling was more effective than 6 months of reform, because governance tells a pack, "I will lead you," and softness tells a pack, "I will love you." Malaya, front row, tears on her face. Not about the puppy. About the man holding the puppy. The man who 3 weeks ago couldn't be unmanaged in front of her and was now being unmanaged in front of 600 wolves. Because a 3-pound dog walked onto a stage and the composure didn't just crack. It opened. Voluntarily. And the opening was a choice. He chose the boot version over the alpha version in front of everyone. He looked at her across the hall. Gold eyes, puppy in hand. And the look was not the alpha look, not the governance look. It was the 3 in the morning look. The standing over something precious look. Except this time it was aimed at her, across the hall, in front of everyone. The look said, "You asked for the boot version. Here it is." She cried. Not sad tears. The tears of a woman who asked to be in the puppy category and just watched her husband open the category to the entire pack, because opening it for everyone was practice for opening it for just her. And the practice was progress. And the progress was love. Harry's ledger. Category B. Catastrophic public incident. Triggered. Category C. Partial name. 50% payout. Total market impact. Chapter 5. Adequate. Day 22. A Tuesday. Morning. George was in his office. The puppy was on its blanket beside the desk. It had grown in 3 weeks, still small, still bread-colored, still committed to the boot as a primary sleeping surface. The puppy got up, walked to George's chair, put its front paws on his knee, licked his hand. Not for food, not for outside, just because George was there. George looked at this dog, this ridiculous, strategically insignificant creature who had walked out of a ditch and sat on his boot and changed everything. Not just the composure, the marriage, the way he held his wife's hand, the way he said things in the dark that the alpha would never approve. "You're a good dog." He said it alone, in his office. "You're a good dog, Commander." Commander. Out loud. In daylight. "You're a good dog, Commander Biscuit. You're the best dog. You walked out of a ditch and sat on my boot, and I didn't move for 45 minutes because you were sleeping, and I would do it again. Every day. Because you are not a strategic asset, and you are not logistics. You are a dog who chose my boot, and I am a man who chose your boot back." His voice was doing a thing. The crack voice. The one where the composure breaks not from pressure but from softness, from the specific weight of loving something so simply that the simplicity overwhelms every defense he has. "And I love you, and my wolf loves you, and my wolf named you, and the name is perfect, and I'm not sorry about the blanket." One tear, left cheek, rolling down. The alpha king of 600 wolves, crying over a dog on a Tuesday morning. Malaya was in the doorway. She'd come to bring him tea, the unvetted tea, the tea that had become their language. She brings it, he receives it, neither explains, both understand. She heard everything. "Commander Biscuit, I love you. Not sorry about the blanket." She stood in the doorway and watched the tear, and the tear was Category D, and it was also the most important thing she'd ever seen because the tear was unvetted. The container fully open, the man fully visible. She stepped into the office. He heard her, looked up. The tear still on his face. He didn't wipe it, didn't compose himself, just looked at her with the open face, the unvetted face, and let her see. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough." "You heard, 'Commander Biscuit, I love you. Not sorry about the blanket.'" "I heard everything." He should have been mortified. The alpha should have engaged. The composure should have snapped back. It didn't. "Good. Good? Good. You asked for the unvetted version. The unvetted version cries about a puppy on a Tuesday. The unvetted version names things Commander Biscuit and means it. The unvetted version is not adequate. The unvetted version is a mess. But you asked for it, and here it is." She crossed the office, sat on the arm of his chair, took his face in her hands. The tear was still there. She didn't wipe it, left it. Evidence. The unvetted version is everything. The mess is everything. I have been waiting for this face for 4 years, and a 3-pound dog found it in 3 weeks, and the dog gave me my husband. The dog gave you the boot. The boot is the husband. The boot was always the husband. The alpha was the performance. The boot was the man. That metaphor is going to get confusing. The metaphor is perfect. We're a boot family now. We're a boot family. Later, still the office, the puppy between them, paws on his knee, tail going. "Nobody outranks the commander," she said. "I don't want to outrank the commander. I want to be next to the commander. Same rank, same category, equal boot privileges." Equal boot privileges. That's all I've ever wanted. Equal boot privileges with a puppy. He laughed. Not the alpha laugh, the boot laugh, the one the puppy got, the one she was getting now. Through the bond, Granite was broadcasting something that sounded suspiciously like contentment, but which he would classify as operational satisfaction with the current security posture if asked. "Say it," Hazel said. "I will not." "Say it. Say you're happy. Say the word." The current operational status is satisfactory. That's the saddest version of happy I've ever heard, and I love you for it. I know, you don't experience tenderness. You experience operational satisfaction, and I experience a wolf who has been hiding behind military language for 4 years and just got outed by a 3-pound dog. And I find this both hilarious and exactly right. Harry had been in the hallway. He'd come to deliver a patrol report 5 minutes before Malaya arrived. He'd heard the solo confession, the "I love you" to the puppy, Commander Biscuit, spoken voluntarily, the crack in the voice. He'd left before Malaya stepped into the doorway, because some things are not for a beta's ears. The tear he knew about, because he could smell it in the bond. The faint salt warmth of an alpha's composure fully open, broadcasting to every wolf in the building. He found Torres in the guard post. All categories, triggered, today. All 4? All 4, his office. He said, "I love you." He said, "Commander Biscuit." He cried. 1 tier counts? 1 tier counts. The odds were on any tiers. 1 is sufficient. Torres whistled. Total redistribution? Across 600 wolves, approximately 4,000 pack credits, minus my 10%. Torres. This is the most money I've ever made. Harry closed the ledger, held it for a moment, looked toward the alpha's office, where the sound of laughing, the real kind, the ungoverned kind, was coming through the door. There's something the pool didn't account for. What? The puppy didn't just crack the alpha, it cracked the marriage. The pool was about when he'd admit he loves the puppy. The real story was what loving the puppy taught him about loving his wife. That's not in the betting categories. No, that one's free. That night, their room. The puppy snoring. The premium blanket in the basket. Malaya had bought 3 new blankets and stopped arguing about the original. Some negotiations end in surrender. Some end in wisdom. This one ended in a woman who loved her husband and his dog, and the blanket the dog stole, and the man who stole it. George. Yeah? I want 1 unvetted thing, every night. 1 thing you've been carrying behind the filter. Give me 1 per night. I'll collect them. For how long? Forever. That's a lot of unvetted things. You've had 33 years of filter. There's plenty of material. What if I run out? You won't. You're the man who counted my pages for 4 years without mentioning it. You have decades of material. I want all of it. All of it. All of it. 1 per night. Starting now. What's tonight's? He was quiet. The dark. The puppy snoring. The breathing. Hers. 18 per minute. The count he couldn't stop. You hum when you're falling asleep. You don't know you do it. It's not a song. It's just a sound, a vibration, like a purr. You purr when you fall asleep, and it's the sound I listen for that tells me you're safe. And when I hear it, the day is over, and everything I carried during the day can be set down. Because you're purring, and purring means safe, and safe means I can stop being alpha for a few hours and just be the man on the boot. She was crying, in the dark, silently. The way you cry when someone tells you something that rewrites your understanding of your own marriage. How long have you known about the humming? Since our first night. 4 years. You were still Malaya Pharaoh. You hadn't been queen for 12 hours and you fell asleep next to me. And you hummed, and I've been listening for it every night for 4 years. You never told me. I never told you anything. That was the problem. The container held everything. The puppy broke the container. You got the contents. I got the contents. All of them. Nightly installments. One unvetted truth per night for the rest of our lives. Deal. Deal. He pulled her close. Not the governance hold, the boot hold. The one where nothing was being managed and nothing needed to be. Her head against his chest, and his hand in her hair, and the dark room, and the snoring puppy, and the sound of two people breathing in a rhythm neither of them was counting, because the counting had become so natural, it didn't need deciding anymore. George. You're not adequate. What? You're not adequate. You're better than adequate. You're the thing that adequate was hiding for 4 years. You're the thing I was looking for that I couldn't name because it had never been present, so I didn't know what I was missing. The boot, the gentle hands, the man who counts breaths and pages and doesn't know he's doing it. You're not adequate. You're everything. He held her tighter. Not the alpha tighter, the grip that says, I'm strong enough to protect you. The boot tighter, the one that says, I'm afraid you'll leave, and I'm telling you I'm afraid, and the telling is the bravest thing I've done today. She could feel it through the bond, what Granite was doing. Not broadcasting, not the operational updates, not the security alerts, not the Commander Biscuit status reports. Something else. Something that felt like a wall coming down brick by brick, each brick a year of hiding. Each year, 100 small moments of tenderness packaged into adequate and delivered to a woman who deserved everything and got sufficient and didn't know there was a difference until a puppy showed her. You're everything too, he said, and his voice cracked on the word. And the crack was the most honest sound she'd ever heard from him, and it cost him. And the cost was visible, and the visible cost was the gift. Because men who govern their feelings for 33 years do not break that governance painlessly. The breaking hurts. And doing it anyway, in the dark, for a woman who asked for the boot version, was the bravest thing George Sellenstead had ever done. And he had done brave things with swords and with borders and with 600 wolves watching, and none of it had required the courage this required. None of it had asked him to be seen. Commander Biscuit grew, medium-sized, 30 pounds, still slept on the boot. Granite never publicly said the name. The guards used it. The kitchen used it. Harry used it to calculate final payouts. Malaya used it to George's face, and he'd stopped correcting her because the correcting took energy he needed for the harder project, which was the unvetted version of his marriage, which was more demanding and more rewarding than the governed version, and he would choose the demanding every time. Harry framed the ledger, hung it in his office next to his patrol commendations, not for the money, for the story. Jensen stood frozen for 30 minutes during a night shift when the puppy fell asleep on his boot, and finally understood what the Alpha had been experiencing, and said to Torres afterward, "That was the most important 30 minutes of my career. I understand everything now. I understand Protocol CB1. I understand the blanket. I understand the gold eyes. Torres, the puppy was on my boot, and I could not move. And the not moving was the most meaningful thing I have ever done as a guard. And I need you to not tell anyone I said this." Torres told everyone. The pool's final entry, in Harry's careful hand. All categories resolved. The pool measured when the Alpha would crack about the puppy. The pool did not measure what the cracking would reveal, which was a man who counts his wife's page turns and has for 4 years and never said. The puppy didn't teach the Alpha to love a dog. The puppy taught the Alpha to love out loud. The wife was the beneficiary. The dog was the catalyst. The house took 10%. Malaya collected her nightly truths. She kept them the way some people keep pressed flowers, carefully, in the order they arrived, each one a small proof that the container was open and staying open, and the man inside was choosing, every night, to be seen. The puppy didn't know any of this. The puppy didn't care. The puppy knew 3 things. Warm spots should be slept on. Food should be eaten. The boot was the best place in the world. The boot was enough. The boot was always enough.